All right, the next topic we're going to look at is graphing an equation that's in vertex form. So we looked at vertex form before. We know how to find a vertex out of vertex form. So when we want to graph an equation in vertex form, here's what we're going to do. Step one, we're going to plot the vertex. So we're going to pull our vertex out and then put that point on the graph. Step two is we're going to use something called a modified table of values. Now that sounds really scary, but it's actually really, really easy. So we're going to use that to get a few more points. And then we're going to mirror those points over the axis of symmetry. Remember, that's what we talked about before. That's that imaginary line that splits the parabola in half that makes it symmetrical on both sides. Okay, now this sounds complicated, but it's really not. So here's what we're going to do. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull out my vertex. So my vertex, remember, it's backwards of what it looks like for the first number. And then the second one is just exactly how it looks. So 3, -1 is going to be my vertex. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to run to 3 and jump to -1. And there's my first point. All right, so now this table of values stuff. So we're going to make a table of values, but it's not a regular table of values. So normally in a table of values, what we would do is we would take these numbers and we'd plug them in for X, and then we'd use that to figure out all the other Y values for this table. Okay, now that is a lot of work. But what we can do with this guy is we can actually shortcut this method using something called a modified table of values. What's a modified table of values? Well, it's going to look familiar. It's the same table of values that we made at the beginning of the unit. Okay, so we're going from -3 to +3. We did this before when we looked at parabolas, right? 0 squared is 0, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. Okay, so all I'm doing with these is I'm just making this where y is just whatever x squared is. And then remember, since it's symmetrical, we figured out that these numbers would be the same as these numbers, just going the opposite way. This right here is our modified table of values. We're going to use this for every single one that we graph. Okay, so how do we use that? Well, here's how the modified table of values works. Normally, what you do with a regular table of values is like the point 0, 0, you'd put a point here, right? Not with a modified one. So what a modified table of values is we're going to pretend that 0, 0 is our vertex point. So this point that I have right here, I'm going to pretend that that point is 0, 0, and I'm going to plot the rest of these points based off of where this one is. So like to plot the point 1, 1, you run 1 and jump 1, right? And normally you'd start here and you'd go this way, right? What we're going to do is we're going to start at the point that we made, and I'm going to go over 1 and up 1 and put a new point there. Okay, next point in my table is 2, 4. So I'm going back to my vertex, not this point that we just made, back to the vertex. And from here, I'm going to run 2 and then jump 4. And there's my next point. Okay, the next one's 3, 9. So again, from my vertex, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 would be about there, right? All right, cool. So that is half of my parabola. Now to make the other ones, you certainly can use these guys and say, okay, I'm going to go left 1 and up 1, left 2 and up 4. But you can actually do it even easier, right? Remember we talked about that axis of symmetry? It's this invisible line that goes straight up, that everything's the same on either side, right? So what you can do is just mirror your points over that axis of symmetry. Since this point is 1 space away from the line on this side, I'm going to put a point 1 space away on that side. This guy is 2 spaces away, so I'm going to go 2 spaces away. And then way up here, this guy's 3 spaces away, so I'm going to go 3 spaces away. I missed kind of a little bit. That one should be a little bit higher. There we go. And there's my graph. All right, one more example. So this guy here, first thing I'm going to do is pull out my vertex point. Oops, drop my marker. So my vertex is going to be -4. Remember, it's backwards. And then +5. So I'm going to come down here, run to -4, jump to 5. And then from there, I'm going to use my modified table of values. I don't even need to make it again. I can just use this one, right? Here's my vertex. This is my new starting point. So from there, I'm going to run 1 and jump 1. And then I'm going to run 2 and then jump 1, 2, 3, 4. I know that's a little bit off my graph, but I want to make sure that I have at least 5 points. Okay, I want at least 5 points to make any graph. So that one's a little bit off. Sorry, it's off a bit. Here's my axis of symmetry. All right, and I'm going to mirror this point over here, and I'm going to mirror this point over here. And there we go. That's our parabola. Okay, so graphing an equation in vertex form isn't hard. It's actually a lot easier than doing a line because your table of values is always the same. You're always going to use the same one every single time.